Because 2025, again, is not just another year. It's an initiation. It's a spiritual and it's an energetic turning point. A reckoning for those of us who came here to awaken, to remember, and rebuild a world that reflects truth instead of illusion. So I call this session The Great Unlearning, Revelation, Liberation in You, Soulmates, because we are the co-creators in this new world. And again, I'm not here to talk about religion or preach, but I want to enlighten us on a new perspective, the new shift in the way that the world is operating. Not from a fear-based state, but from a state of love. This is about revelations in the truest sense. The kind that strips away illusion and actually returns us to what's real. Because there is a spiritual shift happening. One that probably you all can feel deep inside your body. Old systems are collapsing. We're already seeing it. The truths are rising. A lot of people are coming out speaking their truth. And many of us, those that are uncomfortable with this, those that have never lived in this world before, finds this strangely familiar, almost prophetic. Those that are very familiar with the Bible, I'm sure that everything that they're witnessing right now, if you're paying attention and if you're awake, you would see that it's similar to what was written, right? But what if it was written differently? What if we were the ones that misinterpreted, or those that taught it to us misinterpreted the meaning behind it? Because this isn't the end of the world. It's the beginning of a new world. And I told you before, soulmates, I don't believe we were ever meant to live in fear. In fact, I'm the opposite of that. I'm here to talk about love. And we were never meant to perform for love or sacrifice for love. And we were never meant to serve systems that shrink our voice to silence our wisdom or define our worth and dictate how much value we have. But many of us live this way, and we have. And now we are being invited to unlearn, because this is the Great Awakening, the year of the Great Awakening. And we're still being called. Because if we're honest, soulmates, something in this world has not felt right for a long time. We know it hasn't. But most people just say, oh, that's just the way it is. The world has always been that way. The systems we were told to trust, like government, religion, education, tradition, hell, even marriage, they're just not cracking it anymore. It's just not the same. Everything is starting to crumble. And it's not happening by accident. It's happening for us. Because at the same time as things are crumbling, something inside is also arising internally and externally. And the pressure that we've been feeling, which I think a lot of us have, this tug of war between who you've been and who you're becoming. And that's not weakness. And it's not confusion. That's the revelation that we're meant to have. We weren't sent here to uphold what's fallen because things need to fall to be rebuilt. We were sent here to expose it, to unlearn it, and to lead into something new, into being. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just a spiritualist here to enlighten us to see that it's time for us to return to truth, to clarity, and to soul level sovereignty. Because see, sovereignty is the ability to fully own and embody your power. And that's spiritually, emotionally, financially, mentally, even in relationships. It's recognizing that your worth, your wisdom, and your truth come from within. It doesn't come from external approval or authority. And to be sovereign is to trust your own inner guidance, to set boundaries rooted in clarity and compassion, and to create abundance in relationships that reflect who you are, who you really are. And sovereignty is not about isolation or independence in a traditional sense. See, it's about interdependence from a place of wholeness and strength. Because we are all deeply connected, but never bound. You can share yourself freely, but never give yourself away, soulmates. And I think that that's what happens a lot in this world, in our culture, is that a lot of us have lost our way. We've given ourselves away. And it's not intentionally. We did not know what we didn't know. We just thought that was the way it was supposed to be. But what if it wasn't? What if there was a different way? What if there was a better way? And I know it's unusual and it's scary when somebody tells you something different than what you thought was true your entire life. But it's okay to unlearn what you thought was true, especially when there's a higher calling and a divine purpose for why we're all here. With sovereignty, you no longer outsource your joy, your validation, or your security to others. You reclaim your divine right to live from a place of genuine alignment. It's the mark you choose. You choose your choice. You choose it consciously, courageously. When you step fully into your power, your divine strength, that's when you realize that there's a higher call and a bigger purpose. The great unlearning is what happens when you stop living according to the script that the world handed us and start asking yourself, just ask yourself, soulmates, who was I before fear trained me to forget? Before those with the powers that be instilled a fear-based mentality into our world. If we didn't have to live in a place of fear, what would that look like? Then who would you be? Because right now, we're living in that collapse. We've already seen it from the very beginning of the year. And we're going to continue to see it because it's a reckoning. It's time for things to be rebuilt. Economic systems, we already know the market is crashing. Old belief systems are being exposed. And I'm not the only one that's going to have this awakening. There will be others. Because this is a moment in time. And it's not the end of the world. It's the end of the lies. It's the great awakening for a reason. Because we've been asleep. We've been hiding behind the false fear lies that the world has taught us. And Spirit has shown me that we are able to awaken and to see that that is not true. We were never meant to live that way. This is not about ending things. It's about rebuilding something, creating something new. Revelation literally means unveiling. It's the divine act of pulling back the curtain on everything we blindly accept it. We will accept whatever anybody says and gives us. Whatever the world told us, that's what we thought was true. And I understand that that's how we was raised as children. Our parents told us things. Our teachers told us things. For the most part, we believed it to be true. But as adults, it's okay to start to ask yourself and peel back these layers to get clear on whether or not this is really true. It's not destruction. It's just the truth. And what's wrong with living in truth? Because when you live in truth, that's when you become empowered. That's why they don't want us to know the truth. This is why they keep us in a fear-based state of living. But Babylon falling isn't about a city burning. It's about a system being dismantled. It's the end of scarcity, fear, manipulation, and spiritual enslavement. It's actually the beginning of something deeper, something wonderful, something freer, more enlightening. And what I like to call aligned liberation. Because it's the point where we stop outsourcing truth to systems and start embodying it. It's when we stop obeying to be accepted and start aligning to be whole, connecting back with who we are, not with what somebody else taught us. And we're not waiting for heaven. We're here to build the new earth, the new world. And that begins by unsealing what's been hidden in us. Starts with us first, one layer at a time. So let's go deeper. Let's figure out, what is this really about? A lot of things I realized in the Bible was based on fear. If you look at it, there was a lot of things, a lot of stories where people were punished harshly, cruelly. And I'm not saying that that didn't or did not happen. But what I'm saying is in 2025, we don't have to accept that. We don't have to perpetuate that same toxic, fear-based world. We don't. We are sovereign beings, and God gave us mind, body, and soul so that we can be individuals, think for ourselves, make our own decisions, and live the way we are called to live, not what someone else tells us out of fear. So the 7 seals are not punishments. They're initiations that walk us through the unraveling of illusion and the restoration of divine truth. Each seal opens up a doorway to the awakening. Each horseman is not here to destroy you. They're here to reveal you, to initiate the death of falsehood and a return to truth. So I want to begin by unpacking each seal, layer by layer, truth by truth. The first seal, seal 1, the white horse. I connect that with false power, and instead it's spiritual performance and the beginning of liberation. It's not about taking us backwards. It's about us liberating ourselves. Because according to the Bible, it says, I watched as the Lamb opened the first of 7 seals. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. His rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror, bent on conquest. Now, I want to ask you, soulmates, because I know a lot of people read that, but this verse has a lot of layers, and it can be misinterpreted. In fact, it has been misinterpreted. Because again, the way it's been taught to us and the way that it's been interpreted, it's a fear thing. It starts with fear before we even fully understand it. So we see the rider on the white horse, which they try to make it seem as if it's divine. He's holding a bow, wearing a crown, riding with a purpose. But if you slow down a little closer, you'll notice he's riding to conquer. He's not coming with peace. He's coming to dominate. And this is where it really gets deep. Because in traditional biblical interpretations, some believe that the rider was Jesus, but others see it as a symbol of false energy, false Christ energy at that. Because he wears the appearance of light, but moves with control. Because he holds a bow, but no arrows, his power is performative. It's symbolic, see? Manipulative. The missing arrow. It means he doesn't conquer with the truth. He conquers with fear, intimidation, and illusion. So this isn't divine leadership. And it made it seem that as if it was, but it's not. It's false leadership. They don't even have the arrows to back up the fact that they're riding off on the horse. This is Christ, right? Is it really though? Because the person that rode off on the white horse conquers with fear, intimidation, and illusion. So this isn't divine leadership. This is not the return of the Messiah. This is the beginning of the deception. And this is where we have to discern what's true and what's not. Because here's the thing, soulmates. Jesus died on the cross. Jesus was a human being just like you and I. So if God gave him a divine purpose for living, then why don't we have a divine purpose for living? And in fact, we do. We just don't realize the power that we have within us, that we are sovereign beings. And we all have a divine purpose and reason for being here. And we don't need anybody's permission to tell us this. We already know this. And if you don't, I'm here to enlighten you and tell you that absolutely you do. See, the 7 seals in the book of Revelation, they're spiritual activations. They're actually symbolic gateways that show us what must be seen, felt, and released in order to walk in true liberation, to be free. They represent not just the unraveling of the outside world, but the unraveling of what's going on inside of us. So the white horse represents an illusion of light. The kind of leadership that wears a crown, speaks the language of God, claims to offer salvation, but does so through control, domination, and ego. And what does that sound like? That sounds like our world. That sounds like presidents. That sounds like the church. That sounds like any corporate environment that you go in where the leader has a big ego where they believe that what they say is the only way that it goes. And like I said yesterday, soulmates, we all have a voice in this world and we deserve to be heard. Nobody is allowed to take our voice from us. Regardless if they claim to be savior, we have to use our discernment. This is why we have to wake up, because they will tell us anything. But are we really that naive, soulmates? Will we believe anything? Or do we want to believe it? Because if you really just ask yourself the question, is that true? Why would the divine send children on this world, in this world, create man and woman for us to live in fear? Ask yourself that, soulmates. Why would God create us to have us live in fear when we are all here to love and be loved and to be free and to support and uplift each other? So why then would they create a book that instills fear? Because they wanted a world to be like that. And we don't have to live in fear, not when we're supposed to live in a love and alignment with each other. And I know that's so strange and hard to believe because we are not equipped for a world like this, because we don't realize that we have all the power in us to make these changes and we don't need anybody to tell us when to do it. Because those with the leadership, they speak the language of the divine. They claim to offer salvation. But again, how are they actually showing salvation? Are they dividing us or are they uniting us? And we see it all the time. We see it constantly in media. We've seen it in the past. I see it often. I see plenty of people out here manipulating and lying and pretending to be true prophets, but they don't practice what they preach and they don't live what they teach. Or the commercials or things that you see or the news, they basically feed off of your energy, soulmates. They feed us what they want us to believe. Everything is rooted in what? Fear. You turn on the news and it's nothing but negativity. This is why they keep us living in fear. This is how they're able to control us. This is why I said I have not watched the news in over a year. I barely turn my TV on. It can be the preacher. It can be anybody who leads with fear, and they try to use spiritual jargon or they try to use manipulation to basically control the masses. This is the government. This is everything we've always known. It can even be in the relationships that we're in. The people who claim to love and care about us, but then they still manipulate or emotionally abuse or physically abuse us. Or the job that pays you well, but it kills your spirit and your body because now you're overworking and burned out. But now that Neptune is in Pisces, which is all about illusion and fantasy and spiritual deception, these veils are falling. And because it's in Pisces, it can either elevate us into divine connection or it can just keep us living in a fantasy and falsehood. And I don't know about you, soulmates, but once I've seen what I've seen, I can't unsee it. I cannot pretend like I don't know what's really happening in this world. And that's why I choose to speak my truth to enlighten you. Where we've been projecting fantasy and mistaking it for truth. Where we've been led by image and not by energy. We are so quick to trust and believe and fall for people simply because of how they look. We judge people based off of appearances. And I've been saying it for years. I was suicidal for months and nobody knew it because I look like this every day. And it goes back to you cannot judge a book by its cover. But you can feel an individual's energy. You can look into an individual's eyes to see if they're true or sincere. Where have you been confusing charisma for character? Where have you overstayed, even though it's not right? You know it's not right, but it looks like it. But deep down inside, it just doesn't feel good. What does it feel like to be in environments where you're not happy around individuals that you know you're not okay with being around. Your body can feel it. Now, we weren't taught this. In fact, most of us disconnect from our bodies. Our bodies will tell us things even before our brain can tell us. Where are we submitting to leaders or lovers who pretend to wear the crown, but they don't speak the truth? They don't carry the truth. See, revelation is really about pulling back the curtain, exposing what's been hidden. And it's going to shows us the shadows and the truth. It wasn't about just Babylon falling to be destroyed. It was falling because the system needed to be dismantled, just like our systems. And I'm telling you what I know to be true, soulmates, because it's coming. I'm not a psychic, but I just know energy work. And I know everything that I've been talking about since last year is already unfolding. By the time this year is over, it will feel like we have been on a roller coaster ride of life. But a lot of things will shake and a lot of things will crumble and crack and fall because it's God's way of trying to get us to rebuild it. But we have to be empowered enough to know we can rebuild. We can create our own companies. We can create our own banks. We can create our own wealth. We can say, no, we don't want to overwhelm or abuse ourselves anymore. Because the system of control, scarcity, and manipulation, that is no more. A system that has told us who we had to be, how we had to live, and what we had to worship. We don't have to live that way anymore. In fact, we never should have. We should have always been allowed to believe what was true based on it's deeper than just spiritual. It's about embodying this new way of living. When we reclaim our divine identity, when we stop giving people our power. And sometimes we do it inadvertently. But when we begin to live in alignment with God and with our truth and with the rhythm of the earth in this world, yes, our bodies, our energy, our nervous system, everything, all connected. I know it doesn't state that in the Bible because, let's be honest, during those times, they didn't understand metaphysics. Or maybe they did, but rather they didn't want to explore it. But it was a book put together by man, so they chose what they wanted to have in the book, right? Not right nor wrong, just that's just the truth. Just want to make sure my phone don't die. So think about this for a second, soulmates, because this is what we don't even realize is systems. You would understand that those are energetic points inside of our bodies. The crown chakra is the chakra right here at the top of our head. This is the chakra that connects us to our higher self, meaning we're more aligned with spirit and God when we're able to have our crown chakra open up, because it governs the divine connection, clarity, truth, and spiritual sovereignty. So when the white horse rides in, it's not just revealing false prophets out there. Oh, it's shaking up the foundation of what we've been taught to believe was true. And if your crown chakra is out of alignment and your crown chakra is blocked, you're still giving other people the power to control your story and your truth. You're giving somebody else the chance to use your voice. Then you will keep riding in circles of spiritual confusion and emotional dependence. They keep us in this rat race because they make us feel like we have to have them in order to be anything in this world. And we don't, when we can create it together, not out of fear. So the moment we stop chasing money and saviors outside of us and start anchoring into our divine clarity, that's when you attract. That's when you align with everything that is meant for you. That's the moment you break that first seal. And that's the moment when the great unlearning begins. Because you don't need a crown to lead. You don't need a mic to speak your truth. You don't need a pulpit or a program or a platform to be holy. You just need to remember who you were before fear trained you to forget. Now that's seal 1. So that the illusion has been revealed. It's no going back to sleep. You can't unsee it. But seal 2 goes a step further. Because this is the seal that's connected with the red horse, which was about conflict, division, and the war, right? But on a deeper level, it's actually the war within us. Because when the Lamb opened up the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, "Come." Then another horse came out, a fiery one. Its rider was given power to take peace from earth and to make people kill each other. And to him was given a large sword. What does that sound like, soulmates? That sounds like our world, the way we have been living for years. I am from the southeast side of Chicago. I've seen a lot of violence. I've seen a lot of killing. We've seen it constantly. I just told you yesterday my cousin was murdered back in 2017. They give us everything that we need to kill each other. Do you see how it says this in the Bible, right? They basically gave us the foundation for living in a toxic, low vibrational, fear-based world. And I'm saying, no, what if we changed that? What if we created something different? What instead of leading with fear, we came up with something that led with love? Because the way I interpret CO2, it's not that. But I know it's highly confrontational, this seal. Because see, the red horse is not showing up to soothe. It shows up to reveal. Remember, the book of Revelation is about the unveiling. So the red horse represents the breaking of false peace. The kind of peace that comes from silence, submission, and avoidance. We live in a world that tries to silence us. It's actually in our DNA. Our ancestors came into this world silence. And in 2025, I'm saying we don't have to be silent no more, soulmates. We done worked too hard. We done fought too hard for these lives. Our ancestors have gone through too much. And we deserve to speak our truth. But the red horse, see, this rider is given the power to remove the peace from earth. But when you hear that, I know that sounds violent because it is, because that's the way they made it. This is exactly why it's been this way. But when you think about it from a spiritual lens, again, why would the divine create a world like that for us? This is the opportunity for us to wake up and see, no, it's time for us to stop suppressing this. Whatever's been suppressed, it's time for it to rise up to the surface. Whatever unspoken truths you've been avoiding, it's time for you to speak it. Because when that internal tension erupts externally, that's when things shake. That's when things shift. And this isn't about many of us living through this right now. Like, let's be honest. Aren't we already living through this? We've been living through this. The world has been divided, and it will continue to be divided. Not just politically or socially, but energetically. Because there's a war between truth and comfort. Between revelation and repression. Between systems built on domination and the people who are finally saying no more, like myself. But the real message is individuals for our sovereignty. Because we're in a war between fear and love. Between who we were trained to be and who we truly are. Because everything that they trained us to be doesn't necessarily mean God designed us to be that way. That may not even be our divine purpose. Between the conditioned responses and what our soul's wisdom is telling us. We're not witnessing division. Soulmates, we're being asked to look at where it still lives within us. Because if you're feeling divided within, absolutely everything outside is going to continue to reflect that. And I'm saying, no, I'm not divided. So how can I unite us? Give me 1 second, soulmates. I'll be right back. I have to let somebody in. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's go. I told you before, now that Pluto is in Aquarius, this Pluto is all about death and transformation. This is why I'm here. Aquarius rules revolution, collective awakening, and future systems. We're living in a technological world. Created the injustice. So the moment when what's been festering can no longer be hidden, that's when the spiritual awakening happens. Because now the spiritual platitudes and the fake smiles, that doesn't work. You can see right through it. The gift. It's in the unlearning that you experience the gift. When you can see your divine purpose, when you get a chance to see that I have bigger purpose and more to life than what I was taught and what they tried to teach me and tell me. It forces what's false to fall away. And it's going to reveal any trauma cycles. So all the people pleasing, the avoidance that keeps us stuck, if you're in a situation right now and it's toxic, this is the opportunity to shake it up and say, I'm tired. Either we're going to shift this or we have to dismantle. But we should not have to sacrifice or pretend or silence ourselves. Because it's the avoidance that's going to keep us stuck. And we love to be in denial. We love to avoid and pretend. You cannot outrun yourself, and you can't outrun the truth. Not this year. And on a spiritual perspective, on the chakras perspective, this seal, I would say, is connected to the root chakra. And that's about your stability, your survival, your security. Because when your root is destabilized, you react from a state of fear. You cling to control. The minute you feel like you don't have a means to care for yourself, you come from a place of fear. This is how they've been able to keep us in a fear-based state. Because if we don't have money in this world, then they make us feel like we don't matter or we're less than. So they keep us in this rat race. Keep us in fear. Keep us working for them. Killing ourselves for them. Because they make us think that we have to. Otherwise, we won't survive. We won't be grounded and rooted. But when that root is healed, you stand your ground. You lead from alignment. And you stop participating in systems that violate your peace. This is where aligned liberation came from. I actually created this with God in January because I was experiencing this shift. And it came alive for me in my nervous system. I had a dream about it. Because I had a moment of clarity. I said I will no longer pretend to create false peace to avoid confrontation with anything or anyone around me. I'm going to continue to speak my truth. I'm going to always choose love. Even when it disrupts everything I thought was secure. Because if it's not rooted and the foundation isn't built off love, then it's not solid. I don't want it. And you begin to trust that when you stop protecting dysfunction, guess what, soulmates? You start creating liberation and freedom. So when that peace starts to crumble, when the false peace starts to crumble like in Seal 2, and reveals what was holding it together, fear of rejection, fear of lack, fear of stepping outside the system. It's hard to challenge the status quo. I know that's the fear that they want us to have. They don't want us to get educated and smart and speak out against it and say, no, I want to create something different. We've seen what happened, but we also see what happens when we can unite together. We can do powerful things. But again, when you look at the book of Revelations, the way that it's been interpreted. So for example, Seal 3 is about exploitation. because the world has been shaped by survival systems built on debt, disempowerment, and fear. Systems designed to keep you chasing, grinding, and believing that struggle is holy. But that's not true. We can work hard and tie all day long. But when you're on the sick and shut-in list and you burned out and overwhelmed, who's going to pour back into you? See, seal 3 is the black horse. So the Bible says when the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, come. I looked, and there before me was a black horse. His rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard a voice among the 4 living creatures say, a quart of wheat for a day's wages, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine. This horse rides in with economic imbalance, scales in hand, symbolizing injustice. Because let's be honest, it's not balanced. It has never been balanced. From the moment I've been speaking my truth, I keep saying we need more balance. The divine feminine has not been given the respect that she deserves. Hell, the divine masculine can't even embrace his divine feminine energy. And I'm not talking about gender or sex. I'm talking about energy. Things that they don't even talk about in the Bible because they weren't even aware of this back then. In 2025, we get the choice to choose how we connect with the Creator, how we connect with the divine, and how we live in our purpose. And we can say in 2025 that, no, I don't want to continue to live in an imbalanced world. Because the black horse represents inflation, debt, exploitation, and survival system designed to control us through money. What would it look like, soulmates, if us, people of color, created an aligned world where we create a new Black Wall Street, where we create the new Time Warner, where we create our own? We know what we can do when we decide to boycott. So what would happen if we build our own? If we could connect together and create a new world? Because the cost of living is continuing to rise. But those wages aren't matching. I don't care if you do get an increase. It's not going to compare. You probably get 2-3% at most. And that doesn't even put a dent in your check. I know because I worked in HR. I know what they do. But the wealth gap isn't broken though. It was built this way because this was the system they wanted us to have. This is deeper than just economic, soulmates. I keep telling you, it's energetic. Because when your energy is right, when you're in alignment with God and with everything that is meant for you, God will give it to you. You don't have to you don't have to chase, you attract it. You don't have to burn yourself out. They don't want you to know how to be your own medicine. They don't want you to learn how to be your own leaders. They don't even want us to know how to build our own world in our own way. But what would happen if we united and did it together? And this is deeper than money, soulmates. I'm talking about us regaining our power. We can't wait on anybody to save us. I know that the Bible told us that the Savior is coming back. Jesus died on the cross, soulmates. And if you're sitting here waiting on somebody to save you, then you're just going to be waiting. We have to be our own saviors. God gave us a divine calling and a divine purpose. We don't need anybody else to save us. We save ourselves and we connect and partner up together to create a new world for those that are coming after us. So we can save them so they don't have to go through this injustice. This paycheck to paycheck cycle basically keeps us in survival mode. But they preach about abundance that you can't access. The rich stay richer and the poor just, oh well, figure it out. It's basically what they want us to do. And then they give us the idea that hustle equals work. The more money you make, the more you're worth. That you have to earn rest. And that burnout is a badge of honor. And like I said, as a woman, being conditioned to overgive, to just take it, don't say nothing, be pretty, don't get angry, don't show emotion. And that's men and women. And the guilt and the shame programmed around money and rest and pleasure doesn't make sense. As if healing must be earned through suffering. We have the right to say, no, I deserve to rest today. And I know the black men don't know anything about resting. I don't know how many black men I've had to say, when are you going to take a rest? When are you going to stop moving? Be still. It's okay, King. You don't have to do everything. You can be still, rest. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you less of a man. You don't have to suffer. This is why we have high blood pressure. I hate to see my kings out here with high blood pressure having strokes, dying at young ages because they're overworking and overwhelming themselves. I understand you're a provider, King, but if you're not here to provide, then what? So allow yourself the opportunity to rest, contrary to what the world has taught us. That's why aligned liberation is about financial sovereignty. When I say I want to create the new Black Wall Street, I need to do this with co-creators to build a world where we get to dictate our money. We get to have our own banks. We create our own credit unions. We understand the way money works like they do, but we figure out how to do living while we're still here. We all got accountability. So when rooted in truth, wealth becomes a vessel for healing, for building, for changing the story. See, on an energetic level, this connects to the solar plexus chakra, which is in the upper belly, our inner fire. When I say I have to have a full body yes when I make decisions, before I decide to do anything, I feel it in my solar plexus. I feel it in my gut. My body tells me what's good for me, what's not good for me. They didn't teach us this. I had to learn this on a spiritual and energetic level. Because see, this is the space of willpower, our self-worth. We don't. We know our brilliance. We know who we are. We are powerful beings. Somebody told us we wasn't, but oh, absolutely, we are. And in the line liberation, I look at this seal to mean that we are shifting from scarcity consciousness to sovereign consciousness. We release the belief that money is dirty or dangerous. And remember, money is energy. It's an energy exchange. It's neutral. It's the energy we bring to it that determines its impact, not from a positive energetic exchange, but from a negative energetic exchange. That's why it becomes the root of all evil, because we choose to sell our souls for it. We will lie, scheme, cheat, steal. So when I say I rebuilt my life from the ground up, mentally, emotionally, and financially, because I had to heal my own relationship with money, survival, and self-worth. I had to reclaim my own power, not just survive. This is the opportunity and the invitation for us to stop trading our life for crumbs. Because that's exactly what it is. This is our opportunity, soulmates. We can't do it when we dead. We can't wait on nobody else to do it. So if you got a skill and if you got a talent and you got something that you can give to this world, because the world deserves it, then you do deserve to get paid for it. So how do we do it together? We are a bunch of talented, highly gifted individuals, and we don't even know how to come together to work together, because most often than not, as people of color, we have been taught to compete, to hold things close to our chest. Where do you think we got that from? Who taught us to compete with each other? Who taught us to lie, scheme, and cheat and steal from each other? Exactly. So let's unlearn that. Let's create another way of living. Let's do it together. Let's stop feeling threatened or inferior to somebody else simply because they have more than us. Or feeling like we're inferior because somebody has less than. We can balance this out if we came together collectively to co-create. That's what I envision. See, this is not the way the church has been taught on Revelation. But that's fine, because that's why I created a line liberation, because it's the continuation. I'm here to write the story on a world based off of love, not fear. We've been living in fear too long. We see where fear gets us. Hi. I do this work, soulmates, from my heart because God has called me to do this. When you connect with your heart, when you listen to the divine messages coming from source, when you don't allow anything outside of you to distract you, to tell you what you should think. Like I told the young lady, I don't have to go to church. God talks to me all day. I talk to God all day, every day. And then I go do with the work God is calling me to do. Because we were never meant to survive the system. We know that. But who said we couldn't rewrite the system? So as you start to release this grip of survival, something deeper starts to start within you. I've decided I'm done living like that. I left corporate and I'm not going back because they are not allowing me to be the best me or other employees. They are basically keeping you enslaved to their policies, their rules. How dare you come up with an idea? Now, some of you may have wonderful employers. Congrats. But most often than not, you don't. I was working out earlier today. This is the first time I saw the news because I don't look at it at home. And I saw that the Department of Human Services just laid off 12,000 more employees. So you know if they starting with the federal government, what's next? We can't wait on that. We need to start thinking about other ways of creating wealth, of working together. We got to create our own businesses because they're going to toss you out. The minute the top dollars start dwindling and the CEO can't get the bonus, oh, the little man they're going to leave first. That's who they're going to get rid of first. Don't even allow them the opportunity to do that. Have you a backup plan? What's your plan B? Because soulmates, I sell life insurance. I do spiritual guidance. I do astrology reading. I do HR support. I do a lot of things because for one, God gifted me with these talents. And I help people write books because I just wrote a book. So for anybody who thinks that they don't have it in them, absolutely you can. Don't let the world tell you what you can and can't do because they will. And they will make you believe that. You can go to church and they'll tell you that because they'll make you believe that you're inferior. We can't be like the people in the Bible, but we are. We all got God's blood in our bodies. We can be the next Moses, John the Baptist. We can be whatever we want to be. We can create a new way of living. I'm already doing it. So seal number 4 is the moment of the ego death and sacred rebirth. I talked about the ego death a few months ago because I had to have an ego death experience. This is part of the spiritual path. Shall we move forward? Because I think the word ego gets misconstrued. We think of it as something that only men have or something that's, I don't know, sexual. I don't know. Because I know the song Beyonce came out with, they think it's something deeper than that. But I have to really get us to see that it's deeper than just you having a big ego. Ego is about the fear, the control. It's the part of the brain that tells us we have to do these things out of a scarcity mindset, out of a fight or flight mode. But when you allow your ego to die, when you no longer live from a place of fear, that's when you waken. That's when you wake up and see, I don't have anything to be afraid of. Because the divine brought me here and the divine is going to take me out of this world. I don't care what they say. I'm good. This horse is the one that people fear the most. And it's not because they understand it, because again, everything in the Bible is based on fear. So they taught it to us in a fear-based state of mind. They fear it because they have yet to see that, yes, it's a pale horse that brings death, but not as death as an ending, death as an end or a transformation. In order for it to be a new beginning, something has to end. So we have to die. Something has to die so something else can be reborn. That's the transformation process. See, that's what aligned liberation looks like. See, the book of Revelation says it's about death and dying and corruption and greed. No, mine is about aligning. It's about building. It's about creating. The collapse of false identities, outdated attachments, and conditioned beliefs. This is the moment when those structures that we thought was keeping us safe is falling. It's falling apart. This is what happens when you have the ego death. Because when you thought you was holding yourself safe by leading from a place of fear or trying to control things or people. And when you realize, no, I don't want to live in this state anymore, this is not healthy for me, that's when you dead the ego. That's the ego death experience. So the Bible states, when the Lamb opened up the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, come. I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades followed close behind. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, plague, and wild beasts. But this is deeper than physical destruction. Because see, everything about that sounds very, very, very toxic, very negative, very scary. Everything is fear. Oh my goodness. How are we surviving in a world like this if we just living in fear? This is about the death of the illusion, soulmates. This is not about a physical destruction. This is about the death of illusions, the end of who we thought we needed to be in order to survive and belong in this world. Don't you get it? See, traditionally, the pale horse symbolized death and destruction. Because I created a line liberation to show us that this is the collapse of old paradigms. The moment we release what is no longer serving us as individuals. It's the death of false authority, realizing the systems we trusted to protect us were built to control us. We say to keep comfortable. For what? Who will we offend by speaking our truth? And do we care? This is the death of fear-based living. Letting go of the need to be accepted at the cost of our truth. Why do we have to silence our voices? We've been silenced too long, soulmates. This is the opportunity when you wake up and say, I am done. And that may look like walking away from a career that no longer aligns with your purpose. Or releasing a relationship based on obligation rather than authenticity. You don't have to stay in a relationship. You're not obligated. Just because you got married to that person doesn't mean you have to be with them forever if it no longer aligns with the individual that you are. But if you can create that connection again, please do. But if it's not aligning with you, then free yourself. It's time for us to question the beliefs and the traditions that were handed down to us. Think about this. We have to realize that that just does not resonate with who we are becoming. Feeling that deep discomfort of letting go of an identity that once kept you safe. Trusting that what comes next is truer. And I know that that can be scary because I've experienced it. I've endured it. But it's wonderful. It's a wonderful opportunity. Transformation is a beautiful thing. I think I asked that question months ago. I said, are you ready for the transformation? And somebody said, I don't think transforming is the same thing as changing. Transformation is not bad. Healing is not bad. These are all wonderful things that we should want as individuals because our souls deserve it. Our souls came here for a purpose. So let's live fully, not in a place of fear. Allow yourself to transform so that you can experience what's to come next. So how do we transcend it? This is our opportunity. We get to tear down these illusions and force anything that has forced us into radical honesty, which is not true. Anything that they have tried to tell us was true about who we are, we have to tear it down. It's not about letting go. It's just about learning to sit in the void sometimes that follows. Because when you go through this unlearning and you go through this shift of trying to identify, well, who am I? If they didn't tell me I was this, and if I didn't go to college, and if I didn't have this 9 to 5, and if I didn't have all this debt and these expenses, who would I be? If I wasn't trying to pay this expensive mortgage because I was trying to have the American dream, who would I be? And it's not about letting go. It's just about learning again to sit in the void to figure out. Sometimes you got to sit in the uncomfort, in the in-between spaces where the old you dies, but the new you still hasn't fully emerged yet. That's where faith is forged. This is why we're here. It's in the void that you can connect with the divine. It's in the void that you get the chance to connect with your heart and truly discover what it is that aligns with who you are as an individual on a soul deep level. Surrender to transformation. Trust that whatever falls away was never meant to stay. Embrace the rebirth. Allow your true self to rise from the ashes of the old you and step into spiritual power. Realizing death is not the end, but it is a doorway to something greater. I tell you all the time, I go through transformations, deaths, and beginnings. Because I realized that some identities, what I thought I wanted to be, just didn't align with this version of me, not in this chapter. I had the great awakening a year and a half ago. Now I see why. God was trying to prepare me so I can come educate the soulmates, because there will be others to follow. So how do we start to rebuild this new world? How do we start to get into our spiritual purpose and understanding what our true path really is? What identities or beliefs are you still holding on to out of fear? If your job ended tomorrow, what would you do? How many of you have life insurance? Because the policy the company has is not going to be enough, especially if they leave you tomorrow, if they drop you tomorrow. God forbid something was to happen. What's your backup plan? Something was to happen to you, King. What's your family going to do? What is the plan? We have to start thinking like that. We have to start coming up with additional means of saving and creating wealth and having our wealth work for us. But in order for us to get to this space, part of us has to die. Can you trust the void, even if it's unknown, as a sacred space for transformation? Because it sounds good. And you hear me talk about it all the time, but you also see me live it, because Soulmates, I speak my truth. And I tell you that the transformation process is very enlightening and it's very freeing and it's fulfilling, but it can also be scary and isolating when you have never experienced anything like it. And I've never seen anybody doing this work. I've never had anybody speaking about it. So how do I give people what I didn't see? How do I be the voice for those that don't even realize that they're being silenced? We have to unlearn everything that they told us was true, because it's not. Think about it. The world does not look that way. So for you to still try to judge people based on something that was written over 10,000 years ago for this day and age, make it make sense, because it don't. And God forbid I say, well, let's create a new way. Who said we couldn't do that? In fact, God said, please, I encourage it. We don't need the pastor or anybody to give us. We don't need the president to give us permission. We speak our own truth. Why? Because we got all the power we need. We got all the source within. Trust the fire of transformation instead of fearing it. Allow your heart chakra to lead, to open and heal what fear once tried to protect. This is why I tell you, soulmates, I love unconditionally. I love us because of my heart chakra opening. When I was unhealed, when I was trying to unalive myself, it's because I didn't love me enough to see the value in my own life. And it wasn't until I had to go learn to love me again, but I learned how to love others and see I'm here to help us all. But we all have a divine mission. But I guarantee you it's connected to serving and supporting other people. Not the way that they've taught it to us. It just takes me into seal 5. Because when the old self falls away, when the illusions crumble, we finally let go of what's not real. What's left? Nothing but the truth. And the truth is not comfortable. But truth leads to transformation. Seal 5 is the reckoning. That's the cry of those who have suffered under injustice, the voices long silenced, and the wounds that refuse to stay buried. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God and the testimony they had maintained. They called out in a low voice, "How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood?" This is the seal where everything we've ignored, suppressed, or denied comes up. But the way that it is written, it sounds so fear-based. Why would something that, as sovereign beings, we created from love, why would we write something like this? Why wouldn't we create something rooted in love? Because then we won't be able to control people. Because if we felt good about ourselves and we felt good about life, we would do wonderful things in this world. So instead, let's keep them in a low state of mind, keep them feeling like victims, keep them in a low vibrational state so then we can control them. If you keep them in fear, then they won't be able to think for themselves. Then they won't be able to see what it is that we're trying to get them to do. So for those that believe that the Bible is true, ask yourself, why would it be written in such a negative way? Traditionally speaking, the seal speaks of martyrs crying out for justice, those who suffer for truth, wanting divine retribution. I don't want retribution. I want us to wake up. I want us to heal the ancestral pain that we have carried, all the wounds that have been passed down through generations, the cycles of oppression, the unhealed grief, the abuse, the alcoholism, all of those things that we have held in within us to elevate our collective consciousness. We cannot elevate if we don't heal. And we can't heal what we don't feel, especially the things that we don't want to talk about. It's the moment when silence can't no longer be an option. We got to speak our truth. If something is not right, we got to say something. Do they not? Absolutely they do. And you know what chakra this is aligned with? The throat chakra. Because when you speak your truth, that means, baby, your throat chakra is open. See, the way the chakras, not the throat chakra is connected to blue, the color blue. A vibration that symbolizes honesty, clarity, and purification through speech. The freedom of speech. We have lost some greats over the freedom of speech. And in 2025, I wish you would tell me I can't speak my truth. We fought hard for these lives. We fought hard to make a difference in this world, and they don't give us the respect that we deserve. And you know what? We got to create it ourselves. We cannot wait on a savior to save us. We are our own saviors. But when your throat chakra is blocked, you stay silent out of fear. We swallow our injustice. We bite our tongues. We withhold. We go along just to get along. But when it's activated, when it's open and aligned, we speak, we testify, and we liberate others. Not only ourselves, but others, as well as those that came before us. This is how you heal ancestral wounds. How you heal your ancestral lineage, because you start by changing it. You decide, I'm no longer going to live that way because they didn't deserve that injustice, and neither do I. So in honor of those that have died before me, let me speak my truth. Martin Luther King didn't do this for nothing. Malcolm didn't go through this for nothing. And yes, I can be a black female revolutionary. I know the world is what? Well, how can you do that? Because God told me I can, because I don't need anybody's permission to speak my truth, just like they did. This is what it looks like when you have a personal awakening, when you finally acknowledge safe or be accepted. But why? Why do we need to be accepted? Who do we need to be accepted by? Because for me, I'm living for the divine. That's the only acceptance that I need. I don't need anybody else acceptance. I don't need the world to accept my truth. Because every night I go to bed and I thank God for this voice and for my truth and for my entire life and story. Because I'm no longer abandoning me. That's my God-given gift of loving myself and my voice is to speak my truth and empower everyone else to do the same and enlighten them to wake up and see that they have been controlling and manipulating us since the beginning of time. And we know this. Some of us know this. But are you being conscious about making a difference? The generational reckoning. Realizing that the trauma and the oppression in our lineage didn't start with us, but it still shows up in our life. And it's time for us to heal it. The social justice uprising, because we've seen it. But how about we don't need to wait for anything to go wrong before we go ahead and be proactive? I'm ready to do this now because soulmates, get ready. It's March. It's about to be April. We still got quite a few months left in this year, but we've already seen what the first quarter of 2025 has brought us. Planes falling out the sky, wildfires. Wake up, soulmates. Everything is crumbling. We have to rebuild it. Something in the milk ain't clean. Something's got to give. Wake up, collective, wake up. Spirit is trying to get our attention. But what we do, we turn on the news and we allow the media to scare us. I'm not scared. I know what's happening. And those that are on this path in alignment with me, they won't be scared either because they know what's getting ready to happen. We're getting ready to create and build our own. We can have our own airlines. How about that? We don't need their planes. Maybe that's why they're falling out the sky, because those with the powers that be aren't investing the right money into the tools and things to keep the planes in the sky. Maybe we need to create our own plane. Have you ever thought about what it would look like if we created something? We don't need anybody to do that. And just because it was done before doesn't mean we can't do something new. And then when technology evolves, then we judge and we criticize that. No, it's a new world. It's time to wake up. It's time to shift and transform. We're not meant to stay stuck. At least I'm not. Not to each their own, but not me. It's the collective uprising. It's the love revolution. So the resurgence of any racial justice movements, most likely you will see. Because globally, people are waking up and they're ready to confront and demand accountability for systematic oppression that had been ignored for far too long. And I'm saying that as a woman, a black woman who said, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the oppression and the way that the black woman has been silenced, manipulated, degraded, devalued in this world. And I'm not saying that nobody else has been, but what I know to be true is I've seen it, I've experienced it, and I lived it, and I don't want your sympathy. I want to wake you up to see that if we can do this together, we don't have to be oppressed. We don't have a reason to be oppressed, and we can't continue to ignore it. Because King, if you're the provider and the protector, then as the queen, I'm here to handle the spiritual aspects of that. So how do we align this together so that neither one of us feel oppressed? Because you got to go out there and slay dragons. So how do I empower you spiritually? How do I pour into you so that you're ready to go back out there? And how do you pour back into me? That's what it looks like when you're living in alignment. Even in partnerships, even in business. We do business with people thinking we have to, and you have to be careful who you exchange money with. Remember, it's an energy exchange. And all money isn't good money. Especially if you have to sell your soul and if you have to bite your tongue and refuse to speak your truth as a result. This is our opportunity to wake up and say no more. And I know I'm not the only one that's going to walk out the church, even though I've been did that. There's going to be a lot more people. And I realize there are more people because I've been having conversations with them. And they too agree that the church has to do more. And I'm not saying that the church is not doing enough, but what I'm saying is the church got to realize that the way that they've been teaching the way of living, that's no more. That's old. That's outdated. Like I told that young lady, where in the Bible are women celebrated? The few women that are mentioned in the Bible, how do they treat us? We are seen as less than. And the one woman they talk about that made her seem like she was a prostitute and a whore. I don't think that was the way God meant for this world to be. I don't. And I don't even know if that story is true or not. But what I know is I've been living in a world based off of that truth, and I'm not here for it anymore. So leaving those toxic religious systems Anything that has controlled and manipulated you or spiritually gaslit you, it's time to wake up and say no more. Speaking truth in your own relationships. When somebody decides to overstep your boundary, love yourself enough to know that you deserve more. You don't have to tolerate any type of abuse. You don't have to settle just because somebody is taking care of you financially. We no longer live in a way that portrays our own souls. Do you realize how disconnected we are from our souls? We didn't even know we had souls. Black people, we already know they've been silencing us since the beginning of time. But we are not enslaved anymore. They make us think we are because they create fear. But we are not enslaved. We have everything within us to transcend this. But the only way to get in alignment with this is you do not bypass this seal. We can't always I'm not happy. I've been doing myself a disservice and injustice because I haven't been advocating for myself, speaking for myself, and played you. And that's the way the world has always been. And that's okay with you. How about we be our own politicians? We create our own rules and our own laws. Stand in integrity. Lead with integrity, even if it's inconvenient. Sometimes it's going to be an inconvenient truth. But if you choose action over avoidance and be a vessel for justice and healing, then that's when you make a difference. Then that's when you decide to create another way. When your throat chakra is activated and flowing, you no longer fear your own voice. You revere it. You understand that silence can be violence, and speaking truth is not rebellion. It's the sacred act of remembering who you are. Remembering God gave us the gift of voice, gave us the gift of sound, speech. We are talented individuals. Let us utilize these sacred gifts that we are so blessed with. How often have you silenced your truth just to keep peace? What are we keeping peace for if it's not the true peace? It's not peace if inside you're feeling conflicted. And if inside you're having an internal battle. Because 6 years ago, I was having an eternal battle, the hardest fight of my life. And I dare not tell anybody because nobody could understand. They wouldn't relate. Then the world was going to judge me. So I made the choice to say death was going to be easier because I was living in a fear-based world, plus all the other stuff that I had been holding on to. So what's going to happen now if we don't rewrite this story? How can you use your voice, your resources, and your presence to be an agent of healing and justice? Because we deserve this. Our kids deserve this. See, Seal 5 is breaking of silence. It's the moment when the pain that you've been ignoring, you can't, it demands to be heard. You're either going to express it or it's going to kill you. You can't hold it in. We cannot keep outrunning ourselves and hiding from the truth. So when the wounds must be tended, don't deny it. When we commit to the truth, when we step into our roles as justice seekers, as truth bearers, as healers, as leaders, as divine masculine and divine feminine kings and queens, we set the stage for what's next to come because we can do that. That's the great shakening. The moment when the old world cracks because it's cracking and everything changes. We are living in the new world. We are in the new world. I know the Bible had said it was going to look like something else. No, King, we are in it. No, soulmates, we're in it now. This is the new world. And how beautiful and wonderful it is that we are alive to co-create this world, to co-create this space. Because there comes a moment when all this pressure that has been building up within us, within society, within the collective in this world, it can't be contained anymore. In fact, it's going to shake for a reason. It's a wake-up call. Spirit is trying to get our attention. This is the moment when everything, all the things built on illusion, on control, on oppression, it's breaking apart. Because as it states, I watched as he opened the sixth seal, there was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red, and the stars in the sky fell to earth as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The heavens receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. But this is the great shakeup, the collapse of systems. This is where we are now. The unraveling of deception, the moment when truth becomes undeniable. We've already started to see certain people crumble. We've started to see certain people being held accountable. But I'll tell you one person that don't get held accountable, and that's the white man. The white man never gets held accountable in this country. And I'm just speaking truth, and you know I'm not lying. Now, the way that is written in the Bible, the way that it's been traditionally interpreted is that this seal is seen as cataclysmic destruction, the earthquakes, eclipses, stars falling from the sky. And for the most part, we have seen this. Because we have been seeing earthquakes in a lot of places lately that we normally don't see them. But this is a wake-up call. It's time for something new. It's time for it to crack. But the way that it was said in the Bible, they interpreted it as, oh, it was going to be the end of the world. But first of all, we have earthquakes all the time. Why would they think it was going to be the end of the world? Again, the way that it was written and the way that it has been interpreted has been so fearful and low vibrational. Why is it the end? Why would we even want the world to end? Aligned liberation, I don't talk about that. I talk about destruction as not for the sake of devastation, but the collapse of illusions, the destruction of illusions that have held us back and that we can no longer stand. The breakdown of the old world control systems. It's the revelation of what was hidden. It's the moment when everything has to crumble. Anything not built on a solid foundation, it's time for it to crumble, leaving nothing but the truth. So exposing corruption, yes, absolutely, it's time. Of confusion, saying, I don't know if this is true, if I should feel this way, but I'm going to keep doing it anyway. That's when you know it's time for a shakeup. Personal identity shifts. It's okay to let the old version of you die. Let it go. Because it was built on societal conditioning anyway. Who do you want to be? We 40 and up. I think most of us are, right? So why is it then that we're still living the way that they told us we had to live? Because we're adults now, and we don't have to please our parents, grandparents, and nobody but the divine. I don't have to please society. I don't need their validation, and I don't have to impress them. I impress the divine, the creator, the one who actually has control, the only thing that has control over me. The sixth seal shakes everything up, leaves nothing untouched. And it can feel like chaos, loss, confusion. It's supposed to. That's why you have to sit in the void. But what's really happening is it's just crumbling. It's just falling away. Certain things, certain systems, certain laws, they'll just fall away because we realize we can't continue to live that way. And when the world shakes, our first instinct is to cling to something solid. But what's solid? Because what's falling away was never even built on stability. The structure was never even solid. Because I'm going to be honest, the way that they built the world, the way that the Bible was written, I don't necessarily think that was how it was supposed to have been written or how it was supposed to have been interpreted. But you got to think about this for a second, soulmates. I'm about to hit you with the history lesson. We were slaves. So as slaves, who taught us about religion? Whose Bible did we read? Whose God did we serve? Because we didn't have a choice. And so generation after generation and after generation, we continue to live that same false narrative. And here we are in 2025, and some of us are still living in that false story of how we're supposed to live, how we're supposed to celebrate the divine, and how we're supposed to have a connection in a relationship with God. How dare somebody else tell us? Because who said that I had to do it the way you do it? Because my God is a loving God would never strike me down, because my God has shown me I don't have to be perfect. I came here to have the human experience so I can learn the lessons, so I can evolve, so I can go through the struggles, so I can connect closer to the divine, so I can understand what it is that the divine is trying to get me to see. Not the pastor, God. And I don't have to have anybody's permission on how to do that. But when you live in a world that keeps telling you you have to do it this way, that it is. But the question for you is, will you cling to the rubble, or are you going to walk into the new? And this is your third eye chakra. Now, because when these systems collapse and deception is exposed, we're no longer able to rely on those old ways. You can't pretend not to see it. We are being called to access a deeper wisdom, not the wisdom that they told us, because anybody can read a book and pass a test. But what about the deeper wisdom? The wisdom that you're not going to get in the classroom, that you're not going to get in corporate, that you're not going to get in church, because that deeper wisdom is already within you. So look beyond what's fallen and discern what's real. This is the veil that's being lifted. This is the vision that returns us back to our souls. And that's why I created Aligned Liberation, because this is trusting the breakdown, letting go of any false security. Those old ways are done. Stepping into radical faith, because this is what we don't have a lot of. We got to have faith, and we can't wait for God to show us faith. We just have to trust it, embody it, knowing that beyond the chaos, something greater is being rebuilt, because it absolutely is, if we make the conscious choice to do it. Inflation, the market crashes. We've been here. We've done this. We've seen this before, soulmates. And don't be surprised if it gets worse than anything we've ever seen before. So let us prepare now. The banking systems, we've seen what the banking systems do, exposing mechanisms of control. People are moving towards decentralized wealth, ethical living, and financial sovereign world. We can't keep trusting on the powers that be, those that say they have our best interest in mind. I'm not saying that they don't, but sometimes they have a funny way of showing it. The illusion of democracy cracking opens to reveal the deeper truths. There are massive shifts happening in this world every day. Every day people are going through things and nobody wants to admit it, but we see it. We know what it is. I can feel it. This is the great unraveling, so we can have the great awakening. It's a wonderful time to be alive. In fact, the great unraveling is the storm before the dawn. It's the earthquake before the rebuilding. It's the collapsing of the illusion so that we can create something real. When you have that wake up moment, that awakening moment within yourself and say, wait a minute, why is this like this? I don't believe this is true. Why would they tell me this? This is what I was always taught. It was never like that to begin with. This was just a way for them to control me. They taught me that to live in fear because that's how they control us. But those that still live in the fear don't even realize they're so delusional to the fact that they've been living in the fear-based world. They can't even see it. Because when you haven't been exposed to something more, and when you've never felt anything more, living in a fear-based world, living in a low vibrational state, being in a negative mindset, that becomes your new normal. Like I said, it's easy to live in the self-pity and to wallow in it. I did it. But that can overwhelm you, and it's not the chance, or it's not the time to sit in it. It's your chance to understand what it is God is trying to get you to see. God is trying to get you to connect, to understand why you're having this shift, why you're having this awakening. It starts within first. Before anything changes on the outside, it changes in. So once that collapsing of the illusions move away, once you start to have that collapse within yourself, you know what happens? Stillness, silence, pure surrender. You just sit with it. You're left with this space to, guess what? You get to create something new. Because when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. This is the final seal, and it doesn't open with thunder or fire. It opens with silence. And not just any silence, heaven's silence. A silence so profound, so complete, it pauses the noise of prophecy, chaos, war, judgment. A divine stillness that says, wait, listen. Something holy is coming. This is not the end. This is the space between the moment after the old has fallen and before the new has risen. We have to create it. We have to discuss how it's going to look. See, in the traditional interpretation, the silence was often seen as ominous, a pause before the wrath of final judgment. Again, it's fear. We scared. But through the lens of aligned liberation, this is the moment where we just become free. We wake up. We don't have anything to be afraid of because now we know the truth and the illusions have disappeared. Now we are liberated and free. We get to stop trying to fix, rush, and control. We get to surrender and allow God to work, and we trust it. It's that deep breath before the rebirth. A womb of stillness where clarity is born. That's a powerful, powerful being, soulmates. We have no idea what that feels like and looks like because it's not something that they really teach us about. Now, you may have heard about people having a spirit, and I feel that too. Now, I don't talk in tongues or do any of those things, but when I do feel the spirit, the energy rise inside of me, I do things. I go dance. I go in nature. I go do things to pour out this energy. I try to pour it back into other people because that's what my heart tells me to do. And like I said, the seventh seal aligning with the crown chakra, this is the energetic gateway between divine connection, higher wisdom, spiritual integration, and transcendence. Yes, you can transcend and you can be that deeply connected with God. And guess what? It is not a sin because that's your God-given right. And we don't have to wait to die to have that connection. This chakra, the crown chakra, governs our oneness with God, with source, with the universal truth. And when the crown chakra activates, we move from doing to being, from seeking to receiving, from chaos to clarity. Seal 7 invites us into this frequency. It's not a rush into building a new world, but to feel it first. To let it land in your bones, feel it in your gut. To sit in that stillness and allow divine alignment to guide your next move. We don't know how to do that. See, Revelation said it was a terrifying pause. There is nothing terrifying about sitting in silence and sitting in stillness. It's a sacred reset, the divine exhale. That's the moment that your soul catches up to the shift. That's what it looks like to have a spiritual awakening. That's what it looks like to be in alignment in 2025. And yes, it's okay to do this without having to be in church and having somebody tell you how to have a spiritual awakening when all you have to do is just sit, be still, allow the old version of you to die so that your truth can unfold. And that's just that simple, right? It's not, but it is. But it really is if you think about it. It's just the fact that we are so resistant to change that it becomes chaotic, that it becomes uncomfortable. The minute I surrendered and said, God, take whatever needs to be taken away from me, especially if it's material things, because I can replace that. But if I can get my time back and my life back, the most valuable thing I will ever have, then that to me is fulfillment. The moment after deep healing, when there's nothing to fix, but just presence. I wake up every morning thanking God for another day and for whatever's getting ready to unfold in this day. And allow me to stay in my heart-centered space, no matter what happens outside of me. Sometimes there are days where you don't even have words, just awareness. Because there are days, as you know, I months without going live because I had to sit in the stillness and allow spirit to connect so I can understand what was next. What's the next move, God? Nothing but awareness. The stillness after the tears, when you're finally empty enough to receive, because you will receive. But we're taught to fear stillness. We can't be still. What I just said in the beginning of the lie. Black men stay moving and working. Peace, be still. It's not unproductive. Spiritually speaking, that's when things really shift. I can't tell you all the massive downloads and ideas and inspiration I get when I'm in meditation, when I'm sitting in nature, in stillness. This is where your next chapter is conceived. In stillness, not in striving. So I'm going to stop right there, soulmates. Is there any questions, any comments? Because I can go on and on about this. In fact, I will. So stay tuned because will be delivered in print to the soulmates. You all stay tuned because I'm going to create the Align Liberation magazine because it's a movement. Because we are getting ready to co-create the new world, the new way of living, loving, building. And if you are serious about building your own ways of living and you want to create additional wealth or create your own company, please reach out, soulmates. I'm looking for like-minded individuals aligned with a purpose and a meaning, looking to create a new world, a Black Wall Street. Please connect because I can't do it by myself. I need people in alignment with me so that we can live liberated, creating our own ways of being. You all have a good rest of your night, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye, soulmate.